Hello.
Hello. Welcome to our week 3 session of Photoshop. How are you doing, Jamon?
Good.
Awesome. Well, I want to, since we're now more than halfway through the class, I definitely want to give you guys, including you, any chance to ask questions or get one-on-one help with anything if you need any. So is there anything that you are struggling with or need assistance with?
No?
Okay, cool. You're feeling good about your assignments so far, and
Well,
you're
I've gotten hundreds on them.
perfect. Awesome. Well, keep up the good work, and it seems like many other students are joining you in the getting really good grades thing, because I'm loving all of the grades that I'm seeing from you all. And yeah, you guys just continue to do the fantastic work that you all are doing. Um, uh, you guys are turning in your work on time. I think I said this last week. You're following directions. That's excellent. And I just want to reach out to any of you who maybe on a previous assignment got a grade that you're not completely thrilled with. Guess what? I want to help you. I want to do whatever I can to help you all get the grade that you want. So if you are unhappy with a grade on a particular assignment, feel free to revise and resubmit it. And as long as you get it in by Friday, I will be more than happy to accept your work and to reconsider it and maybe give it a higher grade. So Abigail, you're just joining us as well. So Abigail, is there anything, I'd like to kind of turn it over to you guys at the beginning of class to see if there's anything that you need help with or assistance with before we jump into the week 3 assignment. So Abigail, I hear you typing. What do you need help with? And your mic is working, I can hear you. So,
Let me see if I can turn that on. Oh, okay. I just need to watch to work on the assignment for this week. That's all.
okay, cool, perfect. And so anyone who is viewing the recording at home, if you need a little help with something, maybe you had to watch the recording and you're confused about something, always send me an email, come to my multi-session, which will be on Wednesday and Thursday of this week at the same exact time. Come to the Student Success Center, where we have tutors who are available to give you one-on-one help with your assignments, anything. So basically, I know that you have a lot of support. And as I said earlier, if there's an assignment that you earned a grade on that you are not completely thrilled with, by all means, feel free to revise and resubmit that, and I will be happy to increase your grade. Now, the other thing is next week is the final week. So the final week means that that's a hard deadline. Saturday, midnight Mountain Time. You are no longer allowed to turn in anything after that because the classroom will cut you out. And if you email me, I'm sorry, I can't accept your work. If you say, I was right in the middle of uploading my work, I had started uploading it at 11:30 Mountain Time, and it took a really long time, and then I got kicked out. There's nothing I can do. That's a hard deadline. That's like if you were in a brick and mortar school and there was a blizzard and you weren't able to make it to class to take your final, you'd be out of luck. So that's why I really want to stress all of you to please consider turning your work in early, especially in week 4. Get that work in on Wednesday or Thursday. That way, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, if you have slow internet as it's uploading, or if you're just confused about the assignment, you have time to get answers either from me or from the Student Success Center or from the multi-session or from your tutor. So the other thing that we need to talk about is when are the best times to get help from me, your teacher, and to get help from any of your teachers. So professors, enjoy our weekends. And sometimes students like to work on their assignments or even get started on their assignments on Friday night or Saturday night. And that's a really bad time to attempt to call or text or email your teacher, because your teacher's not going to get back to you until Monday. And especially if it's week 4, if we get back to you on Monday, the new mod, you're out of luck. Like, there's nothing we can do for you because the class is already over, okay? So that's why it's really important for you to plan your week and get your assignments turned in, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Don't wait until Friday or Saturday to get started on your work. Okay, that said, let's go ahead and get started on our assignments this week. We are doing image compositing, which means we're combining 2 or more images together to make an entirely new composition using something called masking. And masking is really cool because it's not only something that you're going to need to use for all of your entry-level graphic design work, like the #1 job you're going to get when you are applying, or not get, but that you'll see out there when you're applying for jobs as graphic designers, are like entry-level production artist type jobs. So production artists will be usually asked by the lead graphic designer to cut subjects out of their background or cut products out, and then the main graphic designer will then place those subjects or products into the advertisement. So being able to cut things out is a really important skill for you, and that's why it's really, really important for you all to do really well on this week's assignment. And the reason I have Beyonce on the screen is it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Beyonce. But what's really inspiring about Beyonce is she is such a hard worker. And that's why she's so successful and awesome, is because she's constantly working. And I hope that you guys will take a little inspiration from Beyonce and take your laptop with you everywhere. Because let's say you're waiting in a waiting room. Let's say you have a few hours to kill. If you have your laptop with you, you can open up Photoshop and you can get some schoolwork done. Or even if you aren't able to get schoolwork done, you can open up your laptop and practice a little with Photoshop and, practice cutting things out, practice making some shapes, practice working with the pen tool in Photoshop. Take your laptop with you everywhere, right? And it's always good to just have like a big laptop bag that's nice and hard and has like nice padding on it, so that if you were to drop it or something, your laptop would be protected. Carry that bag with you everywhere, and carry your laptop with you everywhere, and always be working, okay? So masking, this is what we're going to be talking about this week. The main tools we're going to cover in today's class session include the marquee tools, the lasso tools, the quick selection tools, the pen tool, the shape tool, the quick mask tool, and we'll also cover the clipping mask. Now the color range selector and the channel pull are tools that you will use in your advanced classes, but it's not something that you'll need to know for this class. And I think there's a chance I might have talked about the color range selector and the channel pull in your pre-recorded session this week. So if you're curious about that, you can definitely learn a little bit in the pre-recorded sessions, but it's not required for your assignments this week, okay? So these are the masking tools that we are gonna cover today for your assignment. Okay, so actually let's jump into it before we get to the quiz. And I'm going to start with just a little quick demonstration on masking and what it does and what it looks like. And then we'll approach how to use this technique in creating our project this week. Okay, so first I'm going to start with just a regular, nice, small size document. So I'm going to go to File, New. And I'll make the width just something simple. We're going to do like 5 by 7. Actually, no, I'll keep it kind of small. I'm going to place something on here. So I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. This is how you bring your images in when you're ready to do masking. You go File, Place Embedded. I'm just going to browse to a little photo. And then after I bring it into the document, I'm just going to hit Enter or Return. So now that flower is in there. Now, the simplest masking tools to use are the regular marquee tools. And the marquee tools only allow you to make a square and a circle. Oh, sure, Abigail, what's your question?
So when I embedded one of the any of the images actually from the assignment page, they all showed up super, super small. And when I enlarged them to the size of the actual background, it just made them super blurry, like it didn't work.
Yeah. So what it sounds like happened is you accidentally downloaded the thumbnail image instead of the actual image that was full resolution.
Oh, okay.
Or you may have made your document the incorrect size. So let's quickly troubleshoot that. Go ahead and share your screen, and let's take a look at your document. So you just hit the share screen button that's right in the middle of your screen.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I see. Share. Okay. It says it's disabled.
No.
That's okay if it's not. I can just try. I can just re-download the images.
Well, let's check your image size first. So go look at your project, open it up, and then go up to image up at the top of the screen, and then click on image size. And what does it say for resolution?
Let me see. $72.
Okay, perfect. And then for the width and the height, what does it say if you were to change it from pixels to inches?
I already have it set at 7 inches by 5 inches. However, if I were to just put 7 by 5, it automatically changed it for me. When I first started, it changed it to like a decimal instead of just 7 and 5.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like because you might have 7 and 5 set up for pixels instead of inches.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah, because it says inches now. Like I fixed that part. I don't know why it wasn't working.
Okay, well, if you fixed it now, then that means whatever images are in your document are going to look all weird. So yeah, make sure your document is 5 inches by 7 inches, and then delete whatever photo elements are in there. And then when you download the images, it's really important that you don't download the thumbnail images, that you download the actual full resolution images themselves.
Okay, that's probably my problem. So
really, yeah, you have to click on the link name and then wait for it to download.
Okay.
And then this is a large photo. And if you were to just download the thumbnail, control click, or download image. It would be really small. See how small that is?
Yeah, that was probably my problem. Okay, all right, thank you.
No problem, glad to help. So now what we're gonna do is cut these out. And so the marquee tools, which are found over on the left side of your screen. And by the way, if you are not seeing this toolbar, or if this toolbar looks different from how my toolbar looks, you can go up to Window, Workspace, and then click Reset Essentials. And the Essentials workspace is what you want to be in, okay? You don't want to be in painting or photography or anything like that. You just want to be in Essentials. We want it to be real simple, right? We want to have our toolbar and we want to have our layers. And if either the toolbar or the layers are missing, you can go up to, let's do Window, and then you can click on Tools, and you'll see a little check mark up here next to Tools. And if you click on Layers, you'll see a little check mark up here next to Layers, just like that. Now we're ready to cut this out. So we're gonna go to, remember the marquee tools are all roommates together, and this is the second button down. And if you click on the elliptical marquee tool, it looks like a circle that has dashes in it. And I'll come over here and I'm gonna hold down the shift button to maintain a perfect circle. So hold down the shift button while you click and drag at a diagonal angle. And understanding the difference between the words diagonal, vertical, and horizontal are really important for the skills that we're gonna talk about in class today. Because when we're drawing a shape, or when we're resizing a photo, you want to drag your cursor at a diagonal angle. And this is kind of a confusing concept for some students. So I'll take a little bit of time a little later on to talk in depth about the difference between vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. But to picture what a diagonal is, imagine the roof of your house, and how it's not straight up and down, and it's not across, you know, like the ground. Think of the ground as across, the ground is horizontal. Think of the wall of your house is vertical, that means it goes up and down. Diagonal is like your roof of your house. And so when I say click and drag at a diagonal angle, I mean move your cursor kind of as if you're going along the edge of the roof of your house, kind of slanted, right? That's a good word to think of. When you think of diagonal, think of slanted, okay? Now, we have drawn our circle, and I'm gonna do that again so you guys all see. I'm gonna hold down the shift button, and notice if I'm not gonna click and drag vertically, I'm not gonna click and drag horizontally, which means side to side. I'm not gonna click vertically, which means up and down. I'm gonna click diagonally, holding down the shift button, clicking diagonally, and now I've drawn that perfect circle. So now I'm ready to apply a layer mask, which is gonna cut away everything that's outside that circle. And I'm gonna do that by clicking on the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. And now see this black and white shape that has appeared next to the flower layer? This is kind of like a stencil. So if you can kind of visualize in your head what a stencil is, like a piece of cardboard, and if you cut a hole in that cardstock or that cardboard, you can see what's underneath. That's like what a layer mask is. It's allowing us to see what's behind that photo when we cut it away. And everything that is black on that layer mask has been cut away, has been hidden, so then you can see the white background underneath. Now, the really cool thing about masking is that it's never permanent. You can always make changes to it. So for instance, let's say I wanted to get a soft edge to this circle here. I can double click on this black and white layer mask here, double click. I can increase the feathering. And see now how it kind of blends between the picture and the background? That's just one of the many things that you can do with a layer mask. Alrighty, so let's now do that one more time. And definitely you guys take notes. This is one of those things where there's a lot of steps involved. And if you're just sitting back and watching this like a TV show, you're not going to remember all those steps. And it will get really cumbersome for you to have to keep on rewatching this class session every time you want to just cut something out. But if you have a sheet of paper that has all of your notes written down, you can just pull out that sheet of paper, refer to your notes while you do the assignment. Okay, so now I'm going to go over here to the tool panel. And we have the rectangle and the ellipse. These are the two selection techniques that we're going to choose from. I'm going to choose the ellipse. Now watch this. Be sure to write this down in your notes. You hold down the shift button, click your finger on the trackpad, and then drag at a diagonal angle, which means slanted. Diagonal means slanted. And now I'm going to lift my finger up off of my trackpad. I'm going to release the shift key. And now I'm going to go over here to the bottom of the layer panel. And in your notes, you can just draw a picture of the square with the circle inside of it. It's at the bottom of the layer panel. Click on that square with the circle inside of it. And see, it's cut away everything that was outside of my selection. Command D, that's another shortcut key that you want to write down. Command D to deselect. And I just want to get rid of this layer mask, so I'm going to Control, click on it, and then hit Disable Layer Mask. And then I can Control, click on it again, and click Delete Layer Mask. Alrighty, so the marquee tools are useful if you just want to select something that's circular or something that is rectangular. But usually the objects that we need to select are going to be differently shaped. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of the selection techniques. Some of them are going to be more appropriate for this object, and some of them are going to be less appropriate for this object. But it's important that we learn all of them. So then, depending on whatever object we want to cut out, we will easily be able to find the correct tool to do that. So now I'm going to go over here to what's called the polygon lasso tool, which is underneath the elliptical marquee tool and the marquee tools in general. Now, there's a lot of different lasso tools here. They're all roommates together on the same button. You have the standard lasso tool. And the standard lasso tool is going to be only as steady as your finger is steady. So this is my finger on the trackpad right now, trying to trace this flower, and you can see my finger is not very steady. And so the selection that I'm making on this flower is not going to be very good. So now I have completely outlined that flower. And now I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layer panel and click on the square with a circle inside of it. And see, that's a perfect example of a bad selection. See how ugly the edges look? And see how you can see a little bit of the background showing through? This is why the standard lasso tool would be not an appropriate tool to use for your project this week. Control click on the layer mask and then hit delete layer mask. Now let's take a look at the polygon lasso tool. Now there are many cases where the polygon lasso tool will be very appropriate, but this flower is not one of them. The polygon lasso tool can only make straight edges. So I'm going to click on a point, bring my cursor up, click, 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 click. Almost there. Okay, so see how the polygon lasso tool only makes straight edges? Now watch what happens if I click on the square with the circle inside of it. Now the flower only has straight edges, okay? So this would be a great tool for an object that had straight edges only. Not really an appropriate tool for this flower though. Control click on the layer mask, delete layer mask. The next lasso tool is the magnetic lasso tool, and I would strongly recommend not using this. This was a tool that was created for Photoshop hobbyists. It's great for like making little stupid memes that you're going to post on Twitter or Tumblr, but for professional graphic design work, it's really not recommended. What this does is it snaps to pixels of the same color. So I'm just kind of clicking and dragging my way around this flower shape. Just kind of like I would if I had the standard lasso tool. The problem is though, you'll see once I make a layer mask, the edge is going to be very kind of pixelated and jagged, and it's not going to look very good. Okay, so now I've completely enclosed that flower. I've made my selection, and now I'm going to click on the square with the circle inside of it. And so see how it doesn't really look that great? See how you can see kind of some of the green in the background, and it doesn't really look like a natural cut. That's why the magnetic lasso tool is really not recommended for professional Photoshop users. Now, last class, we spent some time with the quick mask tool, which is this little Band-Aid with this kind of dotted circular shape behind it. Now, the quick mask tool is great for a lot of things, but I worry for this masking project, it's not going to give you that clean edge that you really need. So let's take a look at it. So we get the polygon lasso tool. Okay, I have to rasterize this. So if you ever get that little warning that you have to rasterize your layer, just go up to Layer up at the top of the screen and then click on Rasterize. Why is it gray? Okay, it's not. Oh, it is rasterized. Okay, excellent. Oh my God, I just realized I clicked on the completely wrong tool. You guys, I meant to click on the paintbrush tool with the little dotted circle behind it. I clicked on, I must have been thinking about the week 2 class session. Yeah, so you don't want to click on the Band-Aid with the little dotted circle behind it. You want to click on the paintbrush with the little dotted circle behind it. And here now, oh my gosh, wake up, Carly. Here is now where you're going to make your selection, just like we did last week. There we are. And now what I do, you might see something funny happen here. When you click the square with the circle inside of it, see, you get this kind of fuzzy edge. Now this was okay when we were doing that headscarf project, because we were just kind of colorizing something. But for this kind of fuzzy edge is not going to look good in a professional project. So we're going to control click on the layer mask and then hit delete layer mask. Okay, now we're going to get into some tools that are going to be a little bit more appropriate for this specific project or image, I should say, because depending on the images that you choose for your project, you're going to use different tools. So first thing is, I'm going to click on the pen tool, and we're going to make a pen tool selection. And so we're going to click on the standard pen tool, and then we're going to click on Path, which is one of the 3 options available at the top of the screen, Path. And so with the pen tool, we are going to outline this flower. And ideally, I'd recommend staying well inside the boundaries of this flower. So I'm going to click and drag to pull out these anchor points. Click and drag to pull out these anchor points. And so unlike drawing with the lasso tool, drawing with the pen tool is a little bit different. Because if you just click on 2 points, just like the polygon lasso tool, it'll make a straight line. But if you click and then you drag out these little handles here, you'll make a curved line. And you want to kind of curve those handles in the direction of the object. And I'm going to show you a game that you can play really quick that will teach you how to use the pen tool. And this is called the Bezier game. And the pen tool is a really, really important tool, not just for Photoshop, but for all of your Adobe CC programs. You're going to need to use the pen tool in Adobe Muse, in Adobe Illustrator, in Premiere, in After Effects. So it's really important that you get comfortable with the pen tool now. And here's the thing. I avoided the pen tool for so long because I thought it was so cumbersome. And you know, I'm more of a traditional artist where I love just getting the brush tool out and then just drawing with my Wacom tablet on my Cintiq. And so the pen tool kind of feels like counterintuitive. Like instead of just drawing a line, you have to click on a point and you have to drag out these little handles to make a curve. Like it just doesn't seem like it is intuitive. But after I started teaching and I had to teach other people how to use the pen tool, I found that it was actually not that difficult and it just takes a little bit of practice. And for making selections and masks, like what we're doing with this project, it's very useful for objects that have smooth curves and straight lines. And it's great for, you know, those really complicated shapes and complicated backgrounds. But you need the result to be kind of sort of very smooth, like the pen tool has. So where I used to be like really scared of the pen tool after just, you know, watching some YouTube videos, forcing myself to do it, it actually became not that scary at all. Okay, we're almost done completely in closing this. And the cool thing about the pen tool is that you can use it then to make your own custom shapes in Photoshop that you can save and you can use forever and ever. Okay, so I've completely outlined this flower in the pen tool. And now I can't just click on add a layer mask like I would with any of my other tools. What I have to do is turn this path, because that's what we've made. We've made a path. I have to turn this path into a selection. So I'm going to click on the Make Selection button up at the top of the screen. Now I'm going to click OK, and ta-da! We have successfully enclosed this object with a selection. Now, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layer panel and click on the square with the circle inside of it. And see now how this has a much cleaner edge than the quick mask or the magnetic lasso tool, and it's much more precise. That's what the pen tool gives you. Okay, so as I said earlier, I was going to show you where you can play this game that will teach you how to use the pen tool. And this is something called the Bezier game. And so I'm going to share my screen in a second. Okay, so this is the Bezier game, and the website URL is bezier.method.ac. Now what I'm going to do is click on 2 points, and see, that's how you make a straight line with the pen tool. To make perfect diagonals, perfect verticals, and perfect horizontals, you can hold down the Shift button. And so this is a great example of those kind of confusing words I've been using: diagonal, vertical, and horizontal. So the angle that I'm making right now, that's a diagonal. See how it's slanted like the roof of a house? And now the next line I'm making is a vertical line. So see how it's up and down? So I'd recommend writing that in your notes, the word vertical, V-E-R-T-I-C-A-L, vertical. Vertical means up and down. And then horizontal, see how, oops, I didn't click on the node there. And now see how a horizontal line is like the floor of a house? Horizontal, side to side, right? And then now we're making another vertical line and then another diagonal line. Okay, now it gets a little bit trickier when we're making a curve. So I'm going to click on this point and drag out these anchor points that are going to help us create the curve. Now I'm going to let go. I'm going to click on this next point, drag out Those are the anchor points that kind of work like little magnets to make the curve. Click, drag out. See how they're curving that line? Now we can also change the angle of our line and our anchor points like so. Watch. So I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out this handle. Now, with my finger still on the trackpad, I'm going to hold down the Alt button or Option if you're on a Mac. I let go too soon. So watch this. Click and drag. Hold down the Alt if you're on a PC, Option if you're on a Mac, and change the angle. Now I'm going to let go of my clicker. I'm going to let go of my Alt or Option button. Now I'm going to click on this next point, drag out the anchor points. Now I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key, change the angle. I should actually not call these anchor points. I should call them handles. Let go of my clicker, let go of my Alt or Option key, and ta-da! And then you can get into these more complicated objects, right? I probably should have done a little bit of that. Yeah. Fun, 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 right? Okay, so now back to our project. We have so far learned how to make selections using the marquee tools, using the lasso tools, using the pen tool, using the quick selection tool. What we haven't done yet is use the quick mask. And the quick mask is a way to make a selection using the brush tool. Okay, so I'm gonna click on my brush tool, and I need to make sure that I'm painting with pure black and pure white. So I'm gonna hit the letter D on my keyboard. That resets my foreground and background colors to pure black and pure white. You definitely want to have that in your notes. Press the letter D on your keyboard to make sure your foreground and background colors are set to pure black and pure white. And this is the step, this is the process for making a selection using the quick mask. Now what I'm going to do is select my brush tool. That's just the letter B, B for brush. And I'm going to hit the letter Q on my keyboard. Q for quick mask. And now watch, as I start painting, it's this kind of transparent red color. That's the selection, okay? Even though black is my foreground color, I'm painting this sort of reddish selection. If for some reason you're painting and you're not seeing this sort of reddish color, make sure black is your foreground color, because if your foreground color is white, it's not gonna work. Also, make sure your opacity is set to 100%. Make sure your blending mode is on normal. Now you can also increase and decrease the size of your brush, just like we learned last week with our spot healing, by using the brackets next to the letter P. Definitely write that down in your notes. So next to the letter P on your keyboard, the left bracket makes your brush smaller. So see how now I'm painting with a smaller brush. And the right bracket makes your brush bigger. So what I like to do is I like to paint a big area first. And then I'll go in and do the details. So I'm going to paint in this flower. And you want to make sure, of course, that you're using a hard edge brush. Check your brush settings up here. See how my brush is on 100% hardness? If my brush were soft and fuzzy, I would end up with a soft, fuzzy selection, which is not what I want. It would end up looking really bad. Now see how I accidentally went too far in there and I got some green background? I can hit X on my keyboard and now I'm painting with white and I'm erasing. I can hit X again and now I'm painting with black and I'm putting that selection back in. Okay, so clearly you can see that when you paint with the quick mask, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on it and you don't want to get too close to the edge because then you'll get some of that green. But you want to make a nice smooth line, and it's hard to make a smooth line with the quick mask. Okay, and so now I'm ready to turn that quick mask into a selection. So how do we do that? How do we turn that quick mask into a selection? Well, we got to hit the letter Q one more time. Remember, we had to hit the letter Q to start painting in quick mask mode. And then we had to hit the letter Q again to turn that quick mask into a selection. Now, something that's slightly annoying is that you can see I've actually selected everything except for the flower. So I need to do something called invert my selection, which is something you definitely want to write down in your notes. I have to invert my selection. So write this down, guys. To invert, you hit Shift Command I, or Shift Control I if you're on a PC. Shift Command I if you're on a Mac, Shift Control I if you're on a PC. Now that I've inverted the selection, I can go down to the bottom of the layer panel and click on the square with the circle inside of it. And so there's still a few areas that I need to clean up here. But because this is on a layer mask, it's going to be really easy. All I have to do is get my paintbrush out. And every time I paint with black, watch, I'm cutting into this shape and I'm erasing. Every time I paint with black, I'm cutting into the shape and erasing. And then if I go too far and see here, every time I paint with white, I can paint it back. Okay, so I can continue to clean up that edge, watch, simply by painting inside the layer mask. Watch, every time I paint with white, see, every time I paint with white, it shows me what's in the background. And every time I paint with black, it erases. Okay, so that's the quick mask. Now, because you now know how to use the pen tool to make a selection and therefore make a mask, you now know how to use the shape tool to do the same thing. So if you click on the custom shape tool, which is this little, right now it's the line tool, but remember the line tool is roommates with the rectangle tool and the rounded rectangle tool. Go ahead and click on the custom shape tool. You can create a selection if you're in the path mode. So I'm going to go up to the top of the screen after selecting my custom shape tool. And I'm going to go up to the 3 options available at the top of the screen: shape, path, and pixels. And I'm going to select path. And then I'm going to choose a shape from the custom shape library. Now I'm going to click, holding down the shift button, I'm going to click and drag at a diagonal angle, think a slanted angle. Let go of my clicker, let go of my shift button, and now I have a path. I don't yet have a selection. So I need to turn this path into a selection prior to making my layer mask. So I'm going to go up to the top of the screen and I'm going to click the Make Selection button. And then I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layer panel and I'm going to click on the square with the little circle inside of it. Ta-da! I have now turned that selection into a layer mask. Now, there is a final way to make a mask type selection that we're going to talk about before I begin my project, and that is something called a clipping mask, okay? And a clipping mask is a way to clip an adjustment layer or a photo inside of a shape. I'm going to get my text tool out, and I'll go ahead and write something. Make it nice and big. So now I have this text that says flower, and I'm going to drag it underneath the layer of the flower. And then I'm going to place my photo on top of the text. So see, I have picture and I have text. And now to place that picture inside the text, I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option button on my keyboard and then click on the line between the flower picture and the flower text. And you will notice when you hover your cursor over the line between the 2 layers while holding down the Alt or Option button, the cursor will change to a little square with a little downward facing arrow. So I'm holding down the Alt or Option button and I'm hovering over the line between the 2 layers, and you see it's changing to a downward facing arrow. And now I have clipped my photo inside the text. Okay, so Abigail, after you have the shape as a path, you're going to go up to the top of the screen and click the Make Selection button. Do you see the Make Selection button?
I think so.
It's a button that actually says on it, Make Selection.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Cool. And then after clicking the Make Selection button, then you click on the layer mask icon, which is the square with the circle inside of it. I need to. Are you not seeing it?
No, I have a button that says selection, and next to it, not a button, but it says make, and then the thing you can click on says selection.
Yes, that works.
Okay, yes. Okay. But when I click on that, it just gives me this rendering feather radius.
Okay, I need to figure out why my Zoom is not allowing you guys to share your screen. So let me do this. I'm going to go up to my preferences. Come on, Zoom. And because I really need to see your screen in order to help you. Let's see here. So no, I'm gonna go to Zoom, preferences. Okay, try this, Abigail. Go ahead and hit that. Does the share screen option work at all now if you were to hit it?
It just says host disable attendee screen share.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make you a host. That's how I solved it last time. So what I'm going to do here is make co-host. Okay. And you should now be able to share your screen. Perfect, yay. Okay, so you made a path, excellent. And now what you're gonna do is, let's for some reason your layers are not showing up. So let's go up to window up at the top of the screen and click on layers. Ooh. Perfect, and move that. And it looks like you already made a mask. So what you're gonna do is hold down the control button while you click on that white square that has appeared next to your animal. And then you're gonna click delete layer mask. Good. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna go up to the selection up at the top of the screen, click on it, and then you're gonna click OK. Perfect, yay. Now you're gonna click the square with the circle inside of it.
Oh, okay.
Good job. Got
Thanks.
it. Yep, no problem at all. Glad to help. Okay. So I guess that's note to self. That is the way that I can solve that problem with the disabled screen sharing. Alrighty, so the reason that I'm showing you this clipping mask thing is because it's going to be really useful for you when you want to affect the color of specific parts of your image. So let's say we have some, for instance, I'm going to throw in some shapes here in the background, and I'll just make them pink. I'm gonna make actual shapes that we can see. There you go. Okay. So if I were to throw an adjustment layer on this document, such as hue saturation, and click colorize and make everything blue. The hue saturation adjustment layer is affecting everything beneath it. However, I only want the hue saturation to affect the word flower. So what I'm going to do is hold down the Alt or Option button on my keyboard, hold down the Alt or Option button. I'm going to hover my cursor over the line between hue saturation and the flower layer. And now the hue saturation is only affecting the word flower and not these pink shapes I put in the background. I can then double click on this properties option, the little icon that brings me the hue saturation, and I can continue to change the color of just the flower and notice the background isn't changed. This is going to be really useful for our week 3 project when we're trying to get these different objects to match its background. And the reason I chose hue saturation was just because it was the first one I thought of. You are, of course, welcome to use whatever adjustment layer you want to use.
Wait, can you do that again by chance?
Sure. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it when I actually demonstrate how to do the project.
Okay.
But just if you're writing down in your notes, press Alt or Option on your keyboard, hover your cursor over the line between the 2 layers, and then when your cursor changes to a downward facing arrow with a little white box next to it, you just click and then it will clip that adjustment layer to whatever's underneath it. So let's now make our new document. So we're going to File, New, and we're going to make a document that is in inches, not pixels. This is really important. So the width is going to be 7 inches and the height is going to be 5 inches. It's really important that you make your animal projects this size. And I'm just Command plus sizing to zoom in. And we have to make sure that we download these animal pictures at their full resolution. So I'm going to go over to our project here. And we are going to download, I'll choose this little guy. So the mistake that some students make is that they download this little icon here. This is a thumbnail image. It is very, very small. If you download a thumbnail image, it's going to be, oh, and I'm muting Brittany for a second. And for some reason, Brittany does not want to mute.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
It's because she's also a host.
Okay, good. So now what I'm going to do is click on this link instead of the picture. And it downloads the animal. And now I get to choose a hat. And this is really important, guys. Whatever hat you choose needs to match the angle that your animal is facing. So see how this little capybara here is facing at like a 3/4 angle? That means we can't use this front-facing hat or this profile-facing hat or this front-facing hat. We have to use a 3/4 facing hat, right? So I'm gonna click on the little hat 3 link and download that one. And then we're gonna choose a prop, and it's just gonna open by default in preview. Just exit out of there. So I'm gonna click on prop 2, and it downloads. So the point is though, see how large these photos are? We wanna make sure that they're nice and large for when we bring them into our background. And this will be our background. So you must use 4 images total. And in addition to cutting these animals and these objects out and making them look like they all belong on one project, you have to use adjustment layers and blending modes to make them look like they all belong together. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the background first. So I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded. This is really important. File, Place Embedded. And we're going to go and find these in our Downloads folder. And I'm going to bring in the background first. Now, remember when I was talking about the difference between diagonal and horizontal? This is going to be a really important vocab word for you to use when you are resizing this background image. I need everyone to pay very, very close attention. You see these white gaps on the side here? If you try to fix this by clicking on the edge and dragging it this way, this is bad. You are going to get a bad grade if you do this. Do not do this. What has happened is the image has become stretched and it looks really bad. See how stretched it looks now? And the reason why it looks stretched is because now the width is a different percentage from the height. Watch what happens when I change the width back to 50%. Now it looks normal. So when we resize these background images, we don't do it by dragging horizontally from the edge. We do it by holding down the Shift button and clicking on the corner and then using that big word. What's that word again? Kind of hard, kind of tricky. Diagonal. Using that word diagonal, we drag, we click on the corner, hold down the Shift button, and drag our cursor at a diagonal angle, just like the slant on a roof of a house. We hold down the Shift button, and we drag our cursor at a diagonal angle, and we fill up the background with the image this way. And then we have to check and make sure the width and the height have remained the same exact percentage. If the width and the height have changed, that means that you need to retype in the same number so that the width and the height are exactly the same. Now, after you have resized it the correct way, you're going to hold down the Enter or Return button, and it has placed that background into the image. Now I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to bring in the animal picture. Now, again, using that vocab word, diagonal, we're going to hold down the Shift button. We're going to click on the corner, and while holding down the Shift button and clicking on the corner, we are going to drag our cursor at a diagonal angle to shrink him down. And now we're going to check our numbers up at the top of the screen and make sure the width and the height have remained the same. And I see what's actually happened here is I might have let go of the Shift button a little bit because it says 19.39 and the height says 19.32. So I need to change the height to 19.39. And now I'm going to hit Enter or Return. Got it? Now I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to bring in the hat. And now I'm going to hit Place. And now I'm going to hold down the Shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle. Hold down the Shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle on the corner, not the edge. And now to move this into position on the capybara's head, I'm going to click anywhere inside this box that's not in the direct center. And I'm going to kind of roughly estimate where it's going to go. Now I'm going to hit Enter or Return. And now I'm going to bring in the final prop. I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. I'm going to hold down the Shift button and click and drag at a diagonal angle. Move it into place. Enter or Return. And now I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Now I'm going to hit the letter V. That allows me to move it around, and I'm going to estimate where it's going to go. Alrighty, so now we have to cut these different objects out of their background. Then we are going to use adjustment layers and blending modes to make them look like they all belong in the picture. And then we'll be ready to turn it in. So this magic wand here is made of straight lines and angles. So what would be a good selection technique to use for this?
The polygon ellipse tool?
It would be the polygon lasso tool.
Lasso tool, yes.
So I'm going to click on the polygon lasso tool. Zoom in nice and close, and I'm going to stay inside the lines. So I'm going to click on this point, drag, click, 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 click. And notice I'm staying inside the object, so I don't get any white showing through. And now I have made a selection of this object. And now I'm going to click on the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. And there we go. Now I'm going to move it into place by clicking the letter V and placing it here. So what I want to do is make it look like his finger is overlapping the magic wand. So I'm going to get my brush tool out. I'm going to make sure black is my foreground color. I'm going to make sure my layer mask is selected, and I know it's selected because it has little white brackets around it right now. And watch, as I shrink down my brush and I paint over his toe, it now looks like the brush is grasped in his toe. And now there's a little tiny little bit of white showing through right here, so I'm just going to get my paintbrush out and erase that. Okay, and all of that works because I painted on the layer mask. Now I'm going to click on the next layer that I have to cut out, this hat. So I'm going to click on this hat layer. And then I'm going to click on the paintbrush tool, on the pen tool rather, the pen tool. And remember, the pen tool is ideal for objects that have smooth curves and straight lines. So I'm going to click, click, staying inside this line. Click and drag my way. Now I've completely outlined this hat using the pen tool. It's enclosed in a path. And so now I have to turn that path into a selection. So to turn that path into selection, I'm going to click the Make Selection button up at the top of the screen. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to go down and turn this into a layer mask by clicking on the square with the circle inside of it. And now I just have to move this hat into place by hitting the letter V on my keyboard. That's a good shortcut key to write down the letter V. And I can click and move it into place. And maybe I'll just rotate it a little bit. So I'm going to hit Command T, rotate. There we go. So lastly, I just need to cut out the capybara. So I'm going to, just to make it easier on myself, I'm going to turn the eyeball off on these layers. Click on the capybara layer. Then hit the letter B for brush. Hit D to reset my foreground and background colors. And then hit the letter Q to start painting in quick mask mode. I'm going to use my bracket keys to really increase the size of my brush. I'm going to paint in a big area first, and then I'll do the smaller areas later. So the quick mask tool is great for painting in organic shapes with irregular edges. So they're good for things like animals. They're not so good for things with really smooth edges. Okay, so now I've completely enclosed this animal with the quick mask tool. And now I have to turn that quick mask into a selection. So how do I do that? How do I turn the quick mask into a selection? I hit the letter Q on my keyboard. So write down the letter Q in your notes. Q allows you to start painting in quick mask mode, and Q again allows you to turn that quick mask into a selection. Now Command minus sign, Command minus sign, Command minus sign. You can see that in making this selection, I actually selected everything except for the capybara. So I need to invert my selection. And what's the shortcut key to invert a selection? Shift Command I.
Damn it.
Shift Command I. To invert a selection, it's Shift Command I. And now I'm going to turn that selection into a mask. By clicking the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. And now I'm just going to rotate him a little bit. So I'll hit Command T to bring up my transform controls. I'm going to hover my cursor near the corner here, kind of rotate him a little bit so he looks like he's more settled on the ground. Then I'm going to put this little hat on. I'm going to hit the letter V to move the hat, move him into place rather. And I'm going to hit the magic wand tool And I'm going to make sure I have the magic wand tool selected. I'm going to move this so that it looks like it's actually in his little hand. There we go. And so we're partway there. What we need to do now is make this look like it's all a part of the same world. Because right now, these are 4 separate images that have 4 completely different lighting scenarios and different color scenarios. So we have to make them all look blended. So the first thing I need to do is put a shadow underneath the capybara. So to do that, I'm going to click on my background. And then I'm going to hit Shift Command N to make a new layer. And now I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to hit the brush tool. I'm going to reduce the hardness of my brush all the way to 0. And now with pure black as my foreground color, I'm going to paint a straight line right here. Doesn't look realistic yet. Doesn't look realistic at all. So I need to squish that shadow that I've made. And I do that by hitting Command T. Write this down in your notes, guys. Command T. Now I'm going to click on this top square and squish it down. Click on this bottom square, squish it. Squish it. So now it looks like kind of a proper shadow.
Wait, could you repeat that, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Step 1, I'm going to click on my background layer. Step 2, I'm going to make a new layer above my background layer. Then with my paintbrush, with me so far?
Yeah, I'm just handwriting these notes right now.
Yep, no problem. B for paintbrush. With my paintbrush, I'm going to paint a straight line underneath my animal. With me so far? And then I'm going to hit Command T, Control T if you're on a PC, Command T if you're on a Mac. And I'm going to squish the shadow like this so it looks like it's in perspective. And it looks like it's actually underneath the animal. Need me to do that again?
Nope, I got it.
Okay, cool. And now, right now it's very dark, so I need to reduce the opacity of that shadow. And I'm going to reduce the opacity by clicking on.
Oh, wait, quick question. You said there was something about the hardness earlier?
Yeah, I put 0% hardness so that the shadow has a fuzzy edge around it.
Thank you.
No problem. So now I'm going to reduce the opacity. And so see now how there's kind of a, it's not quite black now. And now I'm going to paint shadows on the animal itself. So I'm going to click on the animal layer. I'm going to make a new layer above the animal layer by clicking on the Create a New Layer icon. And so we'll notice that this light is coming from above. So that means there is definitely going to be a shadow underneath the animal's hat. There's also going to be a shadow underneath the animal's chin. Actually, not quite so far. I'm going to Command Z. More like right about here. And shadow under the animal's legs, because the animal's legs are under his belly and probably down his front too. So you'll notice these shadows I painted, they're bleeding onto the background. We need to make a clipping mask to clip these shadows onto the animal itself. So to do that, I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option button. And I'm going to click on the line between layer 2, which is my shadow layer, and the animal layer. Now again, these shadows are very, very dark right now. So I'm going to lighten them by reducing the opacity. So I'm going to click on the opacity option here, again, making sure that my shadow layer is selected. I'm going to lower the opacity like so. Now I am going to make a shadow on the hat as well. So I'm going to kind of put a shadow on right here on the hat. So I'm going to make a new layer above the hat layer. I'm going to get my brush out. I'm just going to kind of make a shadow like right here like that. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option button and click on the line between layer 3 and hat 3. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity. Next, I'm going to put a shadow on the magic wand. So I'm going to click on the prop. I'm going to make a new layer above the prop layer. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option button to clip layer 4 into the prop layer. And now, let's see, there's going to be a shadow here, probably a little shadow here, anything that's being blocked by the light. So that looks good. And then I'm going to lower the opacity. Command minus sign. So that's how I was looking for so far. Now what we want to do is put a photo filter over everything so it makes it look like it belongs all together. So what we can do is we can go to the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other. And we can click on photo filter. And we can decide how extreme we want to make this, right? So I mostly want to make everything blue to kind of match the background. So I can either choose the cooling filter or the blue filter. Then I can kind of increase the density. I can also uncheck preserve luminosity if I want to make it real dark. Something like that looks good. And then you guys learned a little bit about the gradient last class, where we use gradient to make a vignette. So you're more than welcome to make a gradient on this to bring it all together. So if you go to the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other, and then click on gradient, and then you can click on just the black to white gradient like we used last time. You can change the style from linear to radial, reverse it, increase the scale, and then click OK. Now all we have to do is use the multiply blending mode to allow us to see through that white. So I'm going to click on the word normal here, and I'm going to change the blending mode from normal to multiply. And if I don't want it to be quite so dark, I can always reduce the opacity here or after. So the assignment is asking you, unlike week 1 and 2, this assignment is asking you to submit a Photoshop document, a .psd file. So that means when we save this, we're going to go File, Save As. You're going to, of course, save it to your folder that you made for DES104. And we are going to name this using the proper naming convention, DES104 _ week 3 _ your name. .psd, make sure all the layers are showing, and then you're going to hit save. Okay, so let's bring us through this project from start to finish. We started with a new document, and then we brought in the background and then had to resize it. You know, remembering to hold down the shift button as we resize. We then brought in the animal picture unmasked. We then brought in the hat picture unmasked. Then brought in the prop picture unmasked. Next, we use our selection and masking tools to cut out these different objects. Then, using the paintbrush, painted a little drop shadow under the animal, and then using the paintbrush in conjunction with clipping masks, painted shading on the animals and the props, and then use photo filter to make everything blue like it all belongs together, and then use gradient to make a little vignette and make it darker like that. Okay, so that is all the steps, and you'll notice that everything I did is on a separate layer. And I never merged layers, and I never deleted layers, because this way, if our editor or if a client comes back to us and says, you know what, I would like to have something about this changed, you know, maybe I no longer want the prop in his hand, or maybe I want the hat to be a different color, so I want you to make the hat yellow. You can make a hue saturation adjustment layer. Hold down the alter option button and clip that hue saturation adjustment layer. There we go. And then we can colorize the hat to be yellow if it's wanted. So when you put all of your changes on separate layers, it becomes very, very easy for you to make changes. And this is the topic of our week 3 discussion. And our week 3 discussion is asking us, which of these 2 designers has the most effective non-destructive editing technique? This guy, Alan Johnson Smith, he has only 3 layers in his project. And Lakeisha has many, many layers and clipping masks and layer masks, and everything is on a separate layer. And the answer to the discussion question this week is Lakeisha has the most effective non-destructive editing technique. She's using the industry standard way of working, which is having everything separate so you can easily make changes to it later. Okay, and if you scroll down here, you can see, my post, where I talk about why Lakeisha's technique is most effective. Now I know, there's tends to be this idea that discussion posts are open-ended and there's no right or wrong answer. But here's the thing, guys. In this case, there's clearly a right answer. And if you put that Alan Johnson has the best non-destructive editing technique, you are wrong, and you are going to get it wrong. So please do specify that Lakeisha has the most effective technique. Specify the reasons why. You are encouraged to find a quote or an outside source that talks about what non-destructive editing is, and then explain how Lakeisha is fulfilling non-destructive editing. So I want to give you guys a chance to earn full credit on this. So include a quote, include APA format. Be sure to give 2 replies to your fellow classmates, so that way that you can earn full credit. Your assessment this week is going to be a quiz And this is something called a didactic quiz, which means it's not a quiz that you necessarily have to study for. It's a quiz that once you go in there and you take it, it will have a reading or a video that you'll watch, and the topics covered include resizing objects, making masks, using non-destructive editing. And so if you've paid attention in class today, I guarantee you will not have any problem getting an A on your assessment. But here's the other thing. There's no time limit, and there is no limited number of attempts. You can take this quiz as many times as you want. So there is no reason why any of you should end up getting less than 100% on the assessment this week. Cool? Makes sense?
Quick question.
Yeah.
On the assignment, when we turn it in, what are we naming it? DES104. What was after that?
Yeah, just the standard naming convention. We always use DES104 _ week 3 _ your name.
You mean like week 3 _ assignment _ first last name, or?
Yeah, just whatever the standard assignment specific file naming convention is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, whatever we've been using for the last couple weeks.
Whatever gets the point.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the masking topics we've covered, and I just want to check in with you guys and make sure you're getting everything. So definitely feel free to refer to your notes. After painting a quick mask in quick mask mode, how do you turn that quick mask into a selection?
Can you repeat the question?
Yep, do you see it on the screen there?
Oh, that's pretty.
After painting a quick mask in quick mask mode, how do you turn it into a selection?
By pressing Q.
Yep, perfect. Very good. Next question. After making a path with the pen tool, how do you turn that path into a selection?
By clicking Make and Selection.
Yep, by clicking Make Selection up at the top of the screen. Perfect. And then when making a path or a custom shape, there are 3 options available in the menu at the top of your screen. What are those 3 options? There, huh, and huh. One starts with sh, one starts with pa, one starts with pi.
Poo.
Shape, path, and pixels. Shape,
Oh.
path, and pixels. So, we'll to cover that because it's really important. What does the path option do? The path option allows you to make a selection. It makes that invisible imaginary line that you can either stroke and fill in with a line, or fill it in with color, or use, like I said, as a selection. The shape option creates a vector shape that we learned in week 1 can be easily resized, and the pixels option creates a raster shape. It can't necessarily easily be resized, but you can paint on it and you can do all sorts of things with it. So what's this thing then? This is found at the bottom of your layer panel.
Oh, that's your that is the, let me go back on my notes.
Adjustment layer.
Oh, yeah.
Layers, perfect. Thank you very much. And then what mistakes, what's the reason, rather, that this ended up looking like this instead of like this when it was resized?
Instead of dragging it diagonally, they dragged it horizontally.
Yep, they squished it instead of resizing diagonally. Perfect. And then this is the topic for your discussion this week, and you're certainly welcome to use quotes from this lecture if you want, even in your discussion. But working non-destructively will mean having many layers, and so this is the way that you want to work. This is the professional way that you're expected to work, and that your supervisors will be expecting you to work. so that you can easily make changes. So this means that you're going to use adjustment layers instead of going to, you know, image adjustments up at the top of the screen. You're going to actually use adjustment layers, which will be separate layers in your layer panel. You're going to use layer masks instead of erasing pixels. You are going to use smart objects, which you'll definitely hear more about in your intermediate and advanced Photoshop classes. You'll use smart filters, which again, you're going to learn more about in your advanced Photoshop classes. And you're going to make all of your changes on separate layers, resulting in, yes, a document that's going to look a little bit messy and a little bit cluttered, but it's going to be much more efficient for you to use. So our adjustment layers, we've done so many adjustment layers just in these past couple of weeks, but especially in week 2, remember we used solid color adjustment layer to change the color of the headscarf last week. We used a gradient adjustment layer last week and this week to create a vignette around our picture. We used a photo filter last week and this week to make everything in the photo look like it all belongs in the same color scheme. We use hue saturation. Well, you saw me use hue saturation a lot in week 1, where you can move that slider around and see what your composition will look like in different colors. Exposure allows you to increase the lightness or darkness of a picture, and it also allows you to adjust those shadows and make those shadows nice and rich and dark or lighter. And then levels allows you to adjust the lightness and darkness of your midtones, your highlights, and your shadows. So we use the levels adjustment layer on the cat picture when we did that demonstration. The blending modes, these are really important, include multiply, which we used in week 1 as well as in week 2. And so multiply is used, it makes one color opaque and it makes one color transparent. Transparent means you can see through it. So what color does multiply make transparent? White, right?
White.
So
Black.
we put the lines of our coloring book page on multiply so the paper disappeared and became transparent, and we could put our color underneath it. So multiply makes white transparent. Soft light we used in week 2 on the Harley picture. And soft light is where you can actually paint lighting onto a picture. So we use soft light with a brush on white, and we painted white on her face to make more contrast on her face, to lighten the shadows on her face, and to make her skin look like it's glowing. Overlay, something we haven't really played with much, but overlay is pretty fun. It allows you to add textures to your document. So let's say I wanted to give this picture here kind of a grungy illustrated look. So I make a new layer, and I'm gonna go File, Place Embedded, and I'm gonna place a paper texture I found. And you guys can make your own paper textures, or any textures really, by photographing things that are interesting, like fabric, interesting stains on the sidewalk, cracks in the pavement, photographing them and then placing them onto your document. And then watch what happens when I put this on the overlay blending mode. See how now there's this kind of like crinkly paper texture on this? That is the overlay blending mode. So the overlay blending mode is great for adding texture to your design.
Oh, that's dope.
Yep. Hard light is like an extreme version of overlay. Whereas overlay will only show the texture and the shadows, or not the shadows, the midtones. Hard light will show the textures in the shadows and the highlights. So you'll see on here how the texture isn't showing up quite so much in the light areas, and you can't really see it in the dark areas. But when you put this on hard light, you can see the texture is showing up even stronger. And especially if you were to have like a really, really bright white area, the texture would still show through like that. Whereas if this were on overlay, see the texture just goes away completely. So hard light is great for extreme textures, and screen is the exact opposite of multiply. And I believe in my pre-recorded lecture, I go a little bit in depth on what screen does. But whereas multiply makes white transparent, screen makes black transparent. So if you want to add a lens flare to your document.
Wait, can you repeat that really quick? What does what and what does what?
Okay, so remember multiply makes white transparent. Multiply makes white transparent. Screen makes black transparent.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So if I were to make a new layer and fill in that new layer all with black, and then go up to filter, render, lens flare, throw lens flare on here. I could put this lens flare on the screen blending mode. And see, now you can see the lens flare, and you can move this around. And that's because it's on the screen blending mode. Whereas if I were to put it on multiply, it would look like that. So screen makes black transparent. And then color blending mode is what you use to colorize something. So just like we did for week 2 for the headscarf, let's say we wanted to make this whole thing a solid monochromatic color. I would go down to the adjustment layers at the bottom of the layer panel, and I would click on solid color, and I'll choose something like purple. Now, if I were to put this purple on the color blending mode, now the whole image would look purple. So you're definitely welcome to use the color blending mode in conjunction with the color adjustment layer instead of a photo filter to create interesting color effects like this. And especially if you lower the opacity a little bit, it can be quite nice. Looks kind of magical. So those are just some of the most common blending modes that I use, but of course there are plenty more blending modes, and I encourage you guys all to check them out and experiment with them and see what you can do with them. That's the way I learned. I didn't learn from a book. I just learned by opening up Photoshop and playing around with it and figuring out what stuff does. And I think that is the best way to learn. But I want to take a moment to remind you all, since we're 1 week away from being done with this class, back up your files, please. This is really important. Backing up your work means making a copy of your work and then saving that copy not only on your laptop, but on an external hard drive and on a cloud drive as well. So saving it in 2 separate locations away from your laptop. That way, if your laptop were to ever not turn on, which will happen, I guarantee you, you will have your files saved in an external hard drive or a cloud drive.
Good thing I got Google Drive.
Yep, Google Drive is great too. But just always remember, there's a chance that your account could get hacked. So that's why having it in a secure, like, local area, like a external hard drive, is a good place to go in addition to Google Drive. Hey, I want to give you guys a chance to ask any questions, especially if you need help with any week 1 through 3 work. Does anyone have any questions or need assistance with anything?
Mabry does.
Let me see. Oh, Serenity, what can I help you with?
There's Serenity.
Use the capybara. Oh, like the adjustment layers? You flip a coin. So heads is hue saturation. Tails will be photo filter. Flip that coin, see what happens.
Or do both and see what it turns out like.
Yeah, you could do both too. Why not? Anything else I can help you with? Serenity, were you the one who had trouble with, or was that someone else, with the photo retouching?
Yes, it was me.
Oh, do you want to share your screen and get some help with that? So
I have to head over to my communications class. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, have a good night. Thank you. So if you want to share your screen and get help with that, you can just hit the share screen button that's right in the middle of your screen there.
Oh, okay, I see it. I'm not sure if it's shared.
Yep, and then just hit the word desktop. Cool.
Oh gosh, why am I not seeing it? She said, hit the word desktop. Where is desktop?
That's what you.
Okay, where would I find desktop?
Okay,
I have
when you hit the share screen button,
yes.
a little window pops up, right?
Oh, it says host disable attendee screen sharing.
Oh, okay. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna make you a co-host. Okay, and now what you're gonna do is hit the share button.
Okay.
And then hit desktop. Okay, good. And then open up whatever assignment you were having trouble with. I'd love to assist you with it.
Okay. PDS or the JPEG?
The PSD.
PSD, that's what it is. PSD.
Okay, looking good. So it looks like what you want to do is use a little levels. So go to your topmost layer and click on layer 1, and click on the adjustment layer icon, and then click on levels, and drag your slider from the middle over to slightly towards the white one. Oh, sorry, the other way, over to the black one. I always forget. Okay, and right about there is good. Now what we're gonna do is get rid of the excess red. So you're gonna go back to the adjustment layers, and you're gonna click on color balance.
Wait, I just seen it. Okay.
And then you're gonna drag your slider away from red into cyan a little bit. Okay, good. Now we still have some in the shadows. So we're gonna go to, see where the tone says midtones, and you're gonna click on shadows. And you're gonna drag your slider a little bit away from red into cyan, just a little bit. Okay, good, that's good. Okay, and then the next thing you wanna do is add the cat's eye back. So you're gonna make a new layer.
That's where I had a problem with too.
The new layer icon, it's either, you want to write this down in your notes, Shift Command N, or the new layer icon, which is next to the trash bin. Next, you're going to Command plus sign to zoom in.
Shift Command N. I'm sorry. Now,
Command plus sign to just zoom in a little bit. Good. And now what you're going to do is select your lasso tool.
Mommy, the eye looks creepy.
And now you are going to outline the cat's eye and make it wide. So don't just stick with just the, select the area around the cat's eye as well. Just make a big circle. Okay, now what you're going to do is go up to edit up at the top of the screen. And then you're going to click transform. And then you're going to click, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. You need to copy it first. Hit copy merged.
Okay.
Good. And now you're going to hit Command V to paste. And now you're going to hit the letter V, and you're going to click on that eye, and you're going to move it over to the left. Oh, no. Don't click on the center. Click on, click just, yes, right about there. Good. And then place the eye where it should go. And now you're going to go up to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Okay, and then move the eye into place where it doesn't look quite so weird.
Maya.
Sorry, it's just like taking us from that side.
Okay, and then what you have to do is, right now the cat looks cross-eyed, so you have to get your paintbrush out, and you want to go up to the topmost layer. Right now you're on the background layer. You want to go all the way up to the top. You want to make a new layer, and with your paintbrush on the color black, you're going to make the eyeballs a little bit wider, the pupil a little bit wider, so it doesn't look like he's cross-eyed.
Okay. Paintbrush is okay.
And remember, you're on brown right now, so you have to hit D for black, the letter D on your keyboard.
Oh, D for black.
Am I right for you?
No, got it. Thank you. Okay. And plus sign. Okay. You said paint the pupil?
Yeah, it would be best if you watched my pre-recorded lecture, because I actually demonstrate how to do that. But you can certainly use your own best judgment now, and you're going to paint the pupil so it's a little bit bigger going towards the left, so that it hides the fact that he's kind of cross-eyed looking. And so that way it will look like he's looking forward instead of cross-eyed.
Right. Oh.
And you want to do that for both eyes. Okay, and something else I do in the pre-recorded lecture is I use an eraser tool and an eraser with a soft edge brush, and I erase around the outside of the eye so that it blends in, so especially on the new eye. So instead of, you want to be on the layer 3, click on layer 3, and I think it would be best if you look at the way I do it first, but you want to use a brush that's on 0% hardness, and you want to erase around the edge of the eye so it blends in.
Okay. The recorded session you're talking about is the first one, or?
No, the week 2 pre-recorded session. So not the live session that I recorded last week, but the pre-recorded session.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's the one I got.
That's in the live session button.
Okay.
Well, is there anything else I can help you with tonight?
No, I'm just gonna continue on trying to use all these buttons.
Don't use all of them. Just don't use all of them. Just use the ones that you have to use for the assignments, and ignore the rest.
Okay. No, Maya. Okay, thank you so much.
Email me if you have any questions about anything else.
Okay, no problem.